Greetings and salutations to all of you lovely, fluffy, non-fluffy, and always equally beautiful listeners out there. Welcome to whatever number episode of the KittyFoxCast this is. I think we're almost to episode 50, which is a crazy thought. I can't believe I've been doing this podcast this long, and there was a good bit of a break, if you all remember, sometime last year, I believe, where I didn't upload any episodes for mostly 4 or 5 months, but it's still crazy to think that 50 episodes is like the mark that we're on our way to right now, and whether this is the 50th episode or not, then I'm just glad that you're all here, and I'm glad that you're continuing to enjoy and listen and just kind of let me spread my thoughts out on the internet, and just give me the opportunity to kind of be a little more raw and unhinged, than I normally would be on any other platform. I have said this before, but this here that you're listening to is a place where I can kind of let loose a little bit and talk about some things and really whatever's on my mind, and just kind of give you a sort of an unadulterated version of my thoughts. And I know that a lot of times on the main channel, you'll see me do talk point videos. You'll see me do a video on a certain subject, which I love doing, and I'm glad that you all enjoy those videos. On a particular subject that I kind of tackle, and it's been really nice to hear your feedback and read your comments and just feel your love in that. So I want to thank you for that, and also thank you for continuing to hear this and spend time in this platform as well. It just it really gives me the sort of edge that I need to kind of in a therapeutic way to get things out. And I get feedback from you all the time in comments and PMs, and even cross-platform. I'll hear from you about the podcast, and I just want you to know that it really means a lot to me to hear from you. And if you ever have anything that's on your heart, or something you want to say, something you want to speak, feel free to put it in the comments or email. Check out the email in the description, and send me a message there if you like, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it on future episodes. But until then, I just want to let you know that this particular episode is not going to be very long, considering a couple things. One, it is very late in the evening that I'm recording this, and also, if you can't hear it, I'm still not 100% in health just yet. I did have a bit of a setback, unfortunately, over this past weekend. So I was a little sick about a week and a half ago, and I got over that pretty quickly. And then I had something oral health happen that I got taken care of. I had to go to the doctor. It was a whole thing, and that's doing better. But then over this past weekend, which by the way was Father's Day, so happy late Father's Day to all of the fathers, father figures, guardians, and those who brought us up. Want to just shout you out and say thank you for all the sacrifice that you've put towards raising a generation, and I'm thankful for you and all that you've given. But yeah, it was over this past weekend. I ended up having a setback because both of my parents turned out to be not in great health either. So my mom was sick for about a week, and then my dad caught whatever my mom had. And I was like, well, they told me to come over, and this is nobody's fault by any means, so don't think that I'm making an attack out of this or anything like that. But no, it's not that. It's they were like, hey, you can come over for Father's Day. We're going to be having some dinner and doing this and that. And I'm like, okay, sure. So went over there, and we had a great time, but their symptoms were kind of concerning. And sure enough, when I got home that night, I could feel what felt very much like a sore throat. And any of you who've heard me talk about this before, you know for a fact, if there's a symptom that I cannot stand in any sickness, whether it be a cold, the flu, doesn't matter. Sore throats, I cannot stand. It is the worst thing that could happen to me. I cannot tolerate a sore throat. It's the worst. I am absolutely miserable. I'm cranky. I'm just in a bad mood, bad state of affairs, bad mindset whenever I have a sore throat. So I did everything in my power to kill it, and I did in a day. I had it on Monday this past week, and I was doing all the, remedies. I was taking like garlic, vitamin D. I was gargling with like the salt water, the Listerine, all that stuff, doing everything in my power to get rid of the sore throat. And sure enough, in about a day, it was gone. So I'm thankful that it was gone in such a short time. But man, that first day of the week just sucked. I hate sore throats with a passion. Like, I would rather have a migraine than a sore throat. I would rather have a just like an uncontrollable cough than a sore throat. I would rather have congestion than a sore throat. I'd rather have chills or a fever over a sore throat. And that's saying a lot because fevers are miserable too, as many of you know. But yeah, sore throat is a no-go. Can't stand it. So yeah, this past week has been interesting for that reason. I have been, kind of in and out. I've slept a lot this past number of days this week, just trying to get better. As a matter of fact, on Monday when I got home, I slept for like 16 hours or something crazy like that. Like, I had gone to bed pretty early on Sunday, and then I woke up for work. I went to work and had a miserable day with my sore throat and everything. And then when I got home, I fell asleep around 5:30 p.m. and then I woke up at 3 in the morning in the same spot. And I was like, wow, what was that? Usually that doesn't happen unless I'm sick. So I'm like, okay, well, um, I'm just gonna go back to sleep, and I did. I woke up again for work, and then the next day, Tuesday, I basically did the same thing. Another, X amount of hours of sleep. And I will say this: when you're sick, when you have something going on, whether it's a cold or something, something like a home remedy illness is what I'll call them. Sleep, water, and vitamins, I'll say, are your friends. Specifically sleep. Sleep is reparative. It's regenerative. You need sleep every day, right, in order to be energized for the next day. So it would make total sense that it's actually a healing component to whatever you're sick with. So yeah, get as much sleep as you can. Take naps, sleep in if you can. Go to bed early, do what you got to do. But sleep is your friend when you're sleeping. When you're sick. Sorry. As you can tell, I'm tired. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of sleep has been happening. But besides that, as I said, this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode. I have lost most of my voice from coughing from the week. Yeah, the sore throat turned into a cough, which turned into congestion, and it's just been a lot of fun. So, second round of sickness has been great. But I'm just thankful. I am so freaking thankful that this is happening now, and not during Anthrocon, which is in less than 2 weeks at this point. Yeah, July 4th weekend is Anthrocon, and I have some guests coming over from overseas, so I'll be hosting them, and they'll be going with me to Anthrocon for their first furry convention of all time. So I'm excited to, kind of be their chaperone and their sponsor in that. And yeah, I'm so grateful that this is happening now. Like, I'm getting all the sick out of my system, and then we can just go to the con, and we can all be 100% healthy. So yeah, that's an absolute just blessing, and in disguise, that this is happening now and not during the convention weekend. So yep, I'm gonna call that a win. But there's a couple things that I want to kind of throw your way that have been on my heart lately. Um, I have I have a couple notes that I wrote down because I heard a couple things over this past week that kind of resonated with me in a very big way, and I was really and I was really like taken aback by something that I saw. So I follow this creator. A lot of you might know who it is. His name is Dan Bell. He's a he's like the proponent, like the creator of a couple of series on YouTube. He does the Dead Mall series, which basically he goes into malls across America, ones that are like on the cusp of closing or that have closed, and he just walks around and like videos kind of the liminal aspect of the American mall experience. But it's very sullen and empty and quiet, and yeah, he just kind of like captures the experience as it is now in comparison to what it was like, say, 20 years ago when the mall was very active. You know, malls were very much a staple in the US and across the world, and now they are slowly dying because of online shopping and opportunities of that sort. Amazon distribution centers have definitely taken over, and you know, a lot of technology has risen up and replaced the shopper experience as we know it. So malls are, you know, tend to be a thing of the past nowadays. There are still some malls, specifically in my state, that are still pretty active. There's one that I frequent here and there, and it's still fairly active. In fact, I'm surprised to see as many people as I do at this one. I'm not going to name where it is, but it's one of the cities that I went to school in, went to college in, and it's still pretty active. As a matter of fact, there's another mall that I went to in January. It's out in Indiana. That's still pretty active. And then there's another one in Columbus, Ohio. That's still pretty active. So I'm glad to see that there's still, you know, functioning malls. But Dan, in particular, goes around and he captures the ones that are dying. Um, so this creator, Dan Bell, he's I think he's middle aged. He's in his mid 40s, and he's been on YouTube for a long time. Like this guy's an OG in many regards, and he's also like a really profound speaker in my opinion. So he was doing a live stream this past weekend. I think he was on Saturday when I was you know well, actually, no, it was Sunday when I was kind of laid up and feeling sick. I was watching the live stream, and he talked about something in his live stream. He talked about past relationships, and he doesn't, not like romantic ones necessarily, but in general, like people, like friendships and, you know, associates and working relationships, those kinds of things. And he, he he highlighted a point that really stuck with me. He talked about how in life people come and go. Like there's new friends and old ones. There's people that kind of come into your life and they stick around, and then whether you guys have a falling out or, you know, maybe there's bad blood, we hope not. Or you just kind of drift apart like naturally in life, and that's kind of those like that whole bubble of possibilities he highlighted. Whatever the case may be, he talked about how those are the people that have fallen away from your life specifically. Those are the people that will teach you the most about yourself and about others, right? So instead of thinking them in a very bitter or a negative way, like let's say, for example, if it was a falling out or, you know, maybe something happened between you two, couldn't agree on something or whatever, um, we shouldn't take those relationships and think of them as something that should not have happened. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. You know, one, we should be thankful that they happened because, you know, we enjoyed our time with them, we had good times together, and, we remember the good things fondly, right? And whatever happened as far as a falling out or as far as a disagreement or what have you occurred, you still learn quite a bit from that person. You still learn quite a lot about yourself and about others in that regard, because he talked in particular about red flags. Like, they teach you what to look for in others. They teach you, what to be cautious of with others. They teach you about yourself and the way, like, what boundaries you need to set up with others. They teach you about yourself in ways that, what are you willing to put up with? What are you willing to tolerate? And, like, what kind of behaviors are you willing to take up and basically deal with every time, you're around said person or people. And, you know, sometimes you got to draw a hard line, right? You're not going to be able to impress everybody. Not everybody's going to be able to like you in life, and certainly not everyone is meant to. So we should be thankful for those people that have been in our lives and that have come through our lives. And, they teach you the most sometimes about life and about others and about yourself. As a matter of fact, I was recounting a relationship, a friendship that I had. Oh man, this had to be like, let's see, probably like 13 years ago now. It's crazy to think about. Back then, I was in high school and I was actually a new furry. I had just started in the fandom, drew my persona and, got a name and everything. Didn't have a suit yet, all that stuff. And there was a longtime friend that I had at the time. He was a school friend. We went to school together, and he ended up moving away to a different state. So we weren't able to hang out as much, that kind of thing, and that happens. Like we said, life drifts us apart sometimes. Well, we stayed in contact. We would, at the time, it was Skype was the one of the means of contact before Discord and all that. But Skype was our main means of contact. We would play games together. We'd talk about, like, at the time we were both really into YouTube creation, like sketch videos and skit comedy, and we watched the same YouTubers. And, like, I had a YouTube channel at the time. It wasn't my furry one, but it was a sketch comedy one that I worked on, and also a gaming channel that I had at the time. I've had a lot of YouTube channels over the years. Not the one that you're seeing, the main one, right? That one came a little later, but I've had a track record of YouTube channels before that have been failures, for good reason, But anyway, so this friend, we didn't always see eye to eye, and I thought that was okay. Like, okay, we're not going to agree on everything. That's fine. And when you're two dumb kids, you don't know anything about life. You're both 15, 16 years old. What do you know about life? Nothing. There's not a thing that you know about life, really. But the biggest divide, I think, that came between us was the fact that I was a furry. And I kid you not, that was the reason. That was the reason that we ended up, like, calling it quits on our friendship, was because he wasn't okay with the fact that I was a furry. And granted, I knew him before I was a furry, and I found the fandom, and then everything was different from then on, as far as, like, oh, like, I want to do this, and it's a hobby, it's a lot of fun, I like it, etc., etc. He was not keen on it. He, had heard all the stereotypes, and he was, giving me the business about, oh, well, it's deviance, and you shouldn't get involved with that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I don't think you really understand what you're saying. And you can imagine how that elevated quite a bit from there. And it got to the point where we would agree to disagree, and we would talk about it and then kind of make up, and then we would then, like, kind of go on as we always did. But you can always tell when someone just isn't letting something go. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not trying to paint myself as, like, some saint or victim here. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just telling you what happened. A lot of times he would troll me and he would make fun of me, and I would be the butt of a joke because he would get his other friends involved, and they would kind of like playfully jab at me, or at least the way he put it, they would playfully jab at me, and I would tell him to stop, like this is not cool, and because I was a furry. And finally it got to the point where I was like, look, you need to stop. And I would tell his other friends too. I'd be like, he does not know what he's talking about. Please do not let him, on this power trip of, just treating me like I'm a fool. And by that point, he had had enough, and I had enough. And our last conversation, I laid it out to him. I was like, look, stop what you're doing. This is not cool. You need to either drop this and we move on, or we call it quits. And we called it quits. He just, he couldn't take the fact, I guess, that I was into something that he wasn't, that he found weird. And, you know, that's an example. I still think about that relationship. I still think about that friendship. And I think, man, what went wrong? Well, the fact of the matter is, there's really nothing I could have done. All I did was defend myself. All I did was try my best to plead my case, if that is even the response that was garnered or expected. Like, I had to plead my case for something. Like, what kind of a person do I need to plead my case to? What kind of a friend is that, right? In the beginning. But if you have to do that, then it's not a real friendship. Because a real friend will, even if they're not into what you're into, will still support you as a person, right? And will still respect you as a person. But by that point, respect was out the window. It was gone. So I think on that relationship, and I think back on that, and I just go, man, there are so many things I could have done differently. There's so many things I could have said differently. Absolutely. I think we both could agree on that. And I really learned not to take garbage from people like that. I learned about myself that, when someone starts mistreating like that, then it's time to step away, or it's time to confront them and tell them that's not cool. It really, I learned what boundaries were with that kind of thing. And it honestly, it taught me a lot about who your real friends are, I think, is the biggest takeaway. So I do sometimes think about a scenario. If we were to ever run into each other, which I doubt we will, because we moved so far away, like literally many states away in the U.S., but if we were to ever run into each other, we'd, by that point, we'd both be in our late 20s, right? Or older, maybe in our 30s. And what would we say to each other? Would we notice each other and just walk by? Would we not say anything? Would we actually have a moment of like closure where we're like, hey, we were two dumb kids, we didn't know what we were talking about, and then probably shake hands and then go our separate ways? That's kind of the wishful thinking scenario that I've come up with. If I ever see him again, I just hope that I can do that. I hope that I can be bold enough to just be like, hey, look, I forgive you, and I don't excuse the behavior, but I just want you to know that I don't hold any ill will towards you, and if I stick my hand out, I hope he shakes it, and then we walk away. And if we see each other again in the future, maybe, but definitely not holding my breath. But yeah, I do wonder about that sometimes. But the fact is, I learned a lot from that, just that one relationship. And yeah, it really, really showed me who my real friends are, who they're supposed to be. And if by some chance that he hears this at some point, I want you to know that I forgive you, and I don't hold anything against you, because we're both human, and this is what human beings do. You know, we mess up, we hurt each other, we let each other down, but at the same time, we teach each other the most valuable lessons that we could ever learn in life. And those memories I will always cherish, and they cannot be replaced. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty impactful. As a matter of fact, with that, I just want to read something that I was listening to on the way home. It's a song lyric. It's like a little blurb of a song lyric, and it got me to thinking about this very, excuse me, this very same thing. I'm talking about relationships and friendships, and it's from 10th Avenue North, which is a contemporary band out of, well, partly out of Ohio and partly out of other states. But anyway, they're a contemporary band, spiritual band, and they have a song, and I'll link it in the description if you ever want to listen to it. It's called Losing. Interestingly enough, the song itself is called Losing. And the song talks about, I can't believe what's been said to me. I can't believe what has been done to me. You know, how can I forgive someone if I feel like I'm constantly losing? You know, I feel like I'm the one losing and they're winning. And I know I should forgive and I know I should move on and I know I should be the bigger person, but it's hard, you know? So that's what the song talks about. And I love it. I listen to it all the time. It's a great lesson song. But anyway, so this is a little excerpt from that song, Losing, and it goes like this. Why do we think that hate is going to change their heart? We're up in arms in wars that don't need to be fought. Pride won't let us lay weapons on the ground. We build our bridges up, but just to burn them down. We think pain's own apologies and get them to stop. Truth be told, it doesn't matter if they're sorry or not. Big line there. Freedom comes when we surrender to the sound of mercy and grace. Isn't that crazy? I love that last line. Freedom comes when we surrender to the sound of mercy and grace. And as hard as that is to hear sometimes, especially for those who have really wronged us in life, for those of us who are hurting, who are struggling, who are, still reeling over that relationship or that thing that that person said or did, it doesn't do any good for us to hold on to it. It really doesn't. It could be days, months, even years that we hold on to something. But freedom definitely comes when we forgive and we decide that it's no longer worth our time to be dwelling over this thing anymore. And it's it's something I've been thinking about a lot, specifically with relationships and people in my life, and those who have come and gone, right? Even if they haven't wronged me, I still think about, or if I haven't wronged them in any way, right? If you just drift apart, for example, sometimes you can get caught in your own head, and you can think, what happened there? What? Why don't we talk anymore? What did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Like, you start to self-evaluate, and yeah, it really makes me think, what could have been different. But the reality is, you've done everything you can at that point. You've done all you can, and that relationship or that thing or that person or that element, it ran its course, and it was where it sits now is where it's supposed to sit. Sometimes there's nothing we can do or say, to make things better. Quick example I can think of, a friend that I was on really good terms with, and we hung out a lot, and this is a few years ago now. And then one day they just kind of like poof disappeared, and I didn't see them again for a very long time. And then I let me just tell you, I dwelt on it for a long time. Like I even tried like reaching out to them, just being like, "Hey, hope you're doing well. Hope all is, et cetera, et cetera," like you would. No response. Didn't even read my message. Just kind of like ghosted, right? Well, it actually wasn't until this year, yeah, that I finally got closure over that. I saw them at an event. I'm not gonna say what it was, but I saw them at an event, and we ended up talking and we ended up hugging, and it was a really good moment. It was proof to me, even though we didn't really get into it, like of, oh, why did this happen and why did that and where did you go and blah blah blah. We didn't get into any of that. All we did was have a conversation and we hugged, smiled, and we went on our way. And that there was proof to me that I don't think it was anything that I did. I don't think it was anything that they did. I think all it was our lives just went in completely different directions. And there was nothing we could have done about that. Sure, we could have, there. That's the thing, right? It's like should have, would have, could have, what if. We always have those thoughts, don't we, of possibilities. But as it sits with that example in particular, it was just life. Life took us away. And by no means, by no hurt, by no bad blood, not that I can see. Because if there was bad blood or if there was, any issue, then it would have been addressed or it would have been, just complete like avoidance, right? But it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it was quite the opposite. It was a nice embrace. And that was enough for me to realize there was no problem, you know? In fact, the problem was what was created in my own mind. And, I've talked about this before. I think it's Dale Carnegie who says, human beings, our biggest problem as human beings is that we think we shouldn't have any. So we overanalyze, we overthink, we believe that there's a problem or that there might be a problem, so we try to fix it. That's what we want to do as humans. We want to fix things. You want to fix a problem, and sometimes there's no problem to fix. Sometimes you just got to let it lie. And you got to let it happen naturally. Let things happen naturally. Now, for sure, if there is an issue with somebody that you need to address, then by all means address it. If they've hurt you or you've hurt them, say you're sorry, apologize, fess up, be the bigger person, admit what you did, own it, for sure. But also, sometimes there is no problem. There is nothing to talk about. All you can do is when life brings you together again, say hello and then say goodbye. And maybe one day you get to say hello again. So that's all that's been on my mind, like mostly lately. And I think that's where I'll leave it. So, like I said, shorter podcast this time, a little different, but yeah, it talking about Dan Bell and talking about you know people teaching you in ways that you don't expect. It really, really did a number on me this week, and I have to say, it does help me look at relationships differently, even ones that have, gone by, and ones that have come to pass, and even the ones that still stick around. The ones that are still here. I think about those two, and I think, okay, well, how can I learn from those who are still in my life? How can I also be teachable to those? How can I teach and how can I be teachable to those in my life right now? Based on those past relationships, based on the mistakes that I've made, based on the, mistakes that other people have made against me, how can I improve my current relationships with those in mind? And how can I do things better? And I think that's the biggest takeaway is be thankful, be grateful for those who have gone past and who have, you know, been a part of your life at one time and are no longer there, learn from them and respect what it was and keep the memories, the good times cherished in your heart. But the main thing from this is use those past experiences to strengthen the relationships that you have now. And trust me, the people in your life now will thank you for it later. So that's the podcast, everybody. I want to thank you for listening once again. Thank you for possibly 50 episodes of the KittyFoxCast. It's been a huge honor, and I'll still continue to keep going. And I'm glad that I can give you something, that's not only a therapy for me, but also, based on your feedback, something for you to take in and listen to as well, whatever state you're in or wherever you find yourself in life. So, as always, I just want to encourage you. Remember the Latin phrase, sic Parvis Magna. Remember greatness from small beginnings. Remember where you came from and where you started. Remember that in every step that you're taking on this journey, because that's what it is a journey. Every step that you take, there is greatness. Whether that is created by you or whether you find it along the way, there is greatness to be had. Because in reality, you should be yourself. Be you. Don't let anyone ever tell you who you can and can't be or what you can and can't do. Only you can determine that. There has never been anyone like you in the past. There's no one like you right now, and there will never be anyone like you in the future. Nobody can ever do the things the way that you can, the way that you do best. You are created with a purpose, fearfully and wonderfully made, and you have this calling. Even if you don't know what it is, you have this calling in life. So do it to the best that you can. So until next time, this is your host, Samson Kitty Fox. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for letting me get to do this every day. Not that I have to, but that I get to. It is a huge honor. And I would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for you. And if I could, I'd give you all a hug, say thank you, and I am forever in your debt. So I will catch you all in the next episode. Bye-bye. Bye. Meow meow.